I would like to welcome you to our service for Good Friday from Kamloops United Church. Wherever you are watching this service from, we certainly do welcome you. And as for an announcement, just a reminder that this coming Sunday we will be live streaming the Easter worship service at 10 a.m. Hear these words of acknowledgement. Whenever we gather in this space, we acknowledge that we are on the unceded lands of the Tk'emlúps Secwépemc people. Unceded means that this territory was never relinquished, and this acknowledgement reminds us all of our role in reconciliation. Since 1996, Kamloops United Church has been a member of Affirm United, and we are proud to be an LGBTQ2S+ affirming community of faith, where people of all sexual orientations and gender identities are embraced as members and leaders in all aspects of the life and the work of the ministry. So when we say all are welcome, it is with the assurance that all means all. You truly are welcome. One of the earliest stories we have of Jesus is of him calling to those who were fishing to come and to follow after him. Once again this evening, the call comes to us to follow after Jesus. We hear his voice saying, "Will you follow me to the cross?" Will we follow Jesus to the cross and recognize the spiritual significance of this Good Friday? Come, follow me, Jesus said. And now we light the Christ candle, recognizing that in the beginning there was nothing but darkness. And God breathed upon the face of the darkness and said, "Let there be light." May the Lord be with you and grant you peace. The light has come into the world, but the world loved darkness rather than light.
What wondrous love is this, O my soul, O my soul? What wondrous love is this, O my soul? What wondrous love is this that calls the Lord of bliss to bear the dreadful curse for my soul, to bear the dreadful curse for my soul.
When Jesus had finished saying all these things, he said to his disciples, "You know that after 2 days the Passover is coming, and the Son of Man will be handed over to be crucified." Then the chief priests and the elders of the people gathered at the palace of the high priest, who was called Caiaphas. Then one of the 12, who was called Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and said, "What will you give me if I betray him to you?" They paid him 30 pieces of silver. And from that moment, he began to look for an opportunity to betray him.
One of the big theological issues has always been the question, how much did Jesus know about what was happening to him? It is a reflection of the much larger question of how much was Jesus man and how much was Jesus God? And while striving to answer that question is beyond the scope of a Good Friday meditation, I think we might safely say that Jesus was human enough, like us enough, to be terrified at what was happening to him. Listen to his words from the cross. My God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from helping me?" From the words of my groaning. Darkness has fallen upon everything. All that seemed to be so good seems to have ended forever. Life, as Jesus had known it, has ended. Jesus' cry from the cross is so gripping because of its simplicity. Jesus is astounded at what is happening to him. All he desired was to bring God's love and God's care to the people of his native land. He taught, he healed, he prayed. How then did he get to the cross? Is Jesus so unaware of the politics of the day that he doesn't realize that he is nothing but a pawn in the macabre game being played out by Pilate, who represents an alien occupying force, and by the Jewish religious authorities, who represent the local government? The Logos of God, the Son of Man, the Son of God, the Messiah, has fallen into a deadly game. It takes time to absorb all of this. When I was a child, we were told that Good Friday was a day for thinking. It was a day to be quiet, a day for reading rather than boisterous play. While our Protestant tradition has lent itself to a silent reflection upon the events of Good Friday, in many countries throughout the world, church bells will be tolling all day long with a death knell. The church where I was minister in Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island, was built in 1878. It had a bell tower with a long knotted rope which you pulled. The bell would rock back and forth in a cradle. I learned from an elderly gentleman who had been the custodian many years prior that there were different rings for different occasions. For a funeral, it was a simple thump, thump, thump. In countries in Eastern Europe and South America, people go about their day listening to the thumping of church bells. And then in the evening, a casket representing the briar of Jesus will pass through the streets of villages and towns, followed by people carrying candles. The mourners gather around a casket when it comes to rest in the church. Many move forward to kiss it. It is a day beyond words. It is just a day for the senses to take in. Try as we might to add words to Good Friday through theological dialogue or sermons, Good Friday seems to be beyond human comprehension. If you can't make sense of it, you are not alone. We can't make sense of the death of the innocent. We can't make sense of how God allows certain things to happen contrary to our sense of right. There is so much in life that happens to us, to those around us, that we can't make sense of. And so a friend pulls strings to let Jesus' dear friend Peter inside the gate. A woman looks at Peter and asks a question that he answers with a lie. No, he doesn't know Jesus. A fire is lit, and cold men who think they bear no guilt simply because they are following orders are warming themselves. A soldier strikes Jesus. A disciple who loves him denies him for the third time. Somewhere in a yard, a rooster crows. The story is beyond words. But then isn't so much of life beyond words? We read the entire story on this day, not to hear the words, but to feel the shattered pain. Jesus was a man that day on the cross. He felt pain, betrayal, hurt, shame. How important it is, this human side of the God we worship. Yes, God is all-powerful, having set in motion the creation of galaxies and having designed the smallest cell. This is also Creator God. But the God I worship is the one who has felt every arrow of hurt that I could possibly feel, so that in my moments of desperation, when I pray, God knows what I'm experiencing. God feels my pain, and God suffers with me. This is suffering God, and it is quite beyond words. So as God enters our darkest moments of life, knowing what we feel and we experience, the invitation for today, Good Friday, is for us to try and to sense the pain of that first Good Friday rather than try and make sense of that pain. Amen.
When it was evening, he took his place with the 12, and while they were eating, he said, "Truly I tell you, one of you will betray me." Judas, who betrayed him, said, "Surely not I, Rabbi." He replied, "You have said so." While they were eating, Jesus took a loaf of bread, and after blessing it, he broke it, gave it to the disciples, and said, "Take, eat, this is my body." Then he took a cup, and after giving thanks, he gave it to them, saying, "Drink from it, all of you, for this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins."
O sacred head sore wounded, with grief and shame weighed down, now scornfully surrounded, with thorns thine only crown. How art thou pale with anguish, with sore abuse and scorn? How does that visage languish, which once was bright as morn? Thy grief and bitter passion were all for sinners' gain. Mine was the transgression, but thine the cruel pain. Lo, here I fall, my Savior, turn not from me thy face, but look on me with favor, and grant to me thy grace. What language shall I borrow to thank thee, dearest friend, for this thy dying sorrow, thy pity without end? Oh, make me thine forever, and show thy cross to me, and for my succor flying, come, Lord, to set me free. These eyes new faith receiving, from thee shall not remove. For all who die believing, die safely through thy love. What wondrous love is this, O my soul, O my soul? What wondrous love is this, O my soul? What wondrous love is this that caused the Lord of life to lay aside his crown for my soul, to lay aside his crown for my soul.
Then Jesus went with them to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." He took with him Peter and the two sons of Zebedee and began to be grieved and agitated. Then he said to them, "I am deeply grieved, even to death. Remain here and stay awake with me." And going a little further, he threw himself on the ground and prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me, yet not what I want, but what you want." And then he came to the disciples and found them sleeping. And he said to Peter, "So you could not stay awake with me 1 hour? Stay awake and pray that you may not come into the time of trial. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak." Again he went away for the second time and prayed, "My Father, if this cannot pass unless I drink it, your will be done." Again he came and found them sleeping, for their eyes were heavy. So leaving them again, he went away and prayed for the third time, saying the same words. Then he came to the disciples and said to them, "Are you still sleeping and taking your rest? See, the hour is at hand, and the Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Get up, let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand."
To God and to the Lamb I will sing, I will sing. To God and to the Lamb I will sing. To God and to the Lamb, who is the great I am, while millions join the theme, I will
While he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived. With him was a large crowd, with swords and clubs from the chief priests and the elders of the people. Now the betrayer had given them a sign, saying, "The one I kiss is the man. Arrest him." At once he came to Jesus and said, "Greetings, Rabbi," and kissed him. Jesus said to him, "Friend, do what you are here to do." Then they came and laid hands on Jesus and arrested him. Suddenly, one of those with Jesus put his hand on the sword and drew it and struck the slave of the high priest, cutting off his ear. Then Jesus said to him, "Put your sword back into its place, for all who take the sword will perish by the sword. Do you think that I cannot appeal to my Father, and he would at once send me more than 12 legions of angels? But how then would the scriptures be fulfilled, which say it must happen in this way?" At that hour, Jesus said to the crowds, "Have you come out with swords and clubs to arrest me as though I were a bandit? Day after day I sat in the temple teaching, and you did not arrest me. But all this has taken place so that the scriptures of the prophets may be fulfilled." Then all the disciples deserted him and fled.
Go to dark Gethsemane, you that feel the tempter's power, your Redeemer's conflict see. Watch with him and better hour. Turn not from this grief away. Learn from him to watch and pray. See him at the judgment hall, beaten, bound, reviled, arraigned. See him meekly bearing all, love to all his will sustained. Shun not from his aim or loss. Learn from Christ to bear the cross. Calvary's mournful mountain view, where the Lord of glory see, made a sacrifice for you, dying on the uncursed tree. It is finished, hear his cry. Trust in Christ and learn to die. sing on. And when from death I'm free, I'll sing on. And when from death I'm free, I'll sing and joyful be. And through eternity, I'll sing on. I'll sing on. And through eternity, I'll sing on.
Those who had arrested Jesus took him to Caiaphas, the high priest, in whose house the scribes and the elders had gathered. But Peter was following him at a distance as far as the courtyard of the high priest. And going inside, he sat with the guards in order to see how this would end. Now the chief priests and the whole council were looking for false testimony against Jesus, so they might put him to death. But they found none, though many false witnesses came forward. At last 2 came forward and said, "This fellow said, 'I am able to destroy the temple of God and to build it in 3 days.' The high priest stood up and said, 'Have you no answer? What is this that they testify against you?' But Jesus was silent. Then the high priest said to him, 'I put you under oath before the living God. Tell us if you are the Messiah, the Son of God.' Jesus said to him, 'You have said so, but I tell you, from now on you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power and coming on the clouds of heaven.' Then the high priest tore his clothes and said, 'He has blasphemed. Why do we still need witnesses? You have heard his blasphemy. What is your verdict?' They answered, 'He deserves death.' Then they spat in his face and struck him, and some slapped him, saying, 'Prophesy to us, you Messiah. Who is it that struck you?' Now Peter was sitting outside in the courtyard. A servant girl came to him and said, 'You also were with Jesus the Galilean.' But he denied it before all of them, saying, 'I do not know what you're talking about.' When he went out onto the porch, another servant girl saw him, and she said to the bystanders, 'This man was with Jesus of Nazareth.' Again he denied it with an oath, 'I do not know the man.' After a little while, the bystanders came and said to Peter, 'Certainly you are also one of them, for your accent betrays you.' Then he began to curse, and he swore an oath, 'I do not know the man.' And at that moment the cock crowed. Then Peter remembered what Jesus had said, 'Before the cock crows, you will deny me 3 times.' And he went out and wept bitterly.
Were you there tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they nailed him to the tree? Were you there when the sun refused to shine? Were you there? Were you there when the sun refused to shine? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when the sun refused to shine? Were you there when they pierced him in the side? Were you there? Were you there when they pierced him in the side? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they pierced him in the side? Were you there when they laid him in the tomb? Were you there? Were you there when they laid him in the tomb? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they laid him in the tomb? Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom.
When morning came, all the chief priests and the elders of the people conferred together against Jesus in order to bring about his death. They bound him, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate, the governor. When Judas, his betrayer, saw that Jesus was condemned, he repented and brought back the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and the elders. He said, "I have sinned by betraying innocent blood." But they said, "What is that to us? See to it yourself." Throwing down the pieces of silver in the temple, he departed, and he went and hanged himself. But the chief priests, taking the pieces of silver, said, "It is not lawful to put them into the treasury, since they are blood money." After conferring together, they used them to buy the potter's field as a place to bury foreigners. For this reason, that field has been called the Field of Blood to this day. Then was fulfilled what had been spoken through the prophet Jeremiah, and they took the 30 pieces of silver, the price of the one on whom a price had been set, on whom some of the people of Israel had set a price, and they gave them for the potter's field, as the Lord commanded. Now Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus said, "So you say." But when he was accused by the chief priests and elders, he did not answer. Then Pilate said to him, "Do you not hear how many accusations they make against you?" But he gave him no answer, not even a single charge, so that the governor was greatly amazed. Now at the festival, the governor was accustomed to release a prisoner for the crowd, anyone whom they wanted. At that time, they had a notorious prisoner called Jesus Barabbas. So after they had gathered, Pilate said to them, "Whom do you want me to release to you, Jesus Barabbas or Jesus who is called the Messiah?" For he realized that it was out of jealousy that they had handed him over. While he was sitting on the judgment seat, his wife sent word to him, "Have nothing to do with that innocent man, for today I have suffered a great deal because of a dream about him." Now the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowds to ask for Barabbas and to have Jesus killed. The governor again said to them, "Which of the two do you want me to release to you?" And they said, "Barabbas." Pilate said to them, "Then what should I do with Jesus, who is called the Messiah?" All of them said, "Let him be crucified." Then he asked, "Why? What evil has he done?" But they shouted all the more, "Let him be crucified." So when Pilate saw that he could do nothing, but rather that a riot was beginning, he took some water and washed his hands before the crowd, saying, "I am innocent of this man's blood. See to it yourselves." Then the people as a whole answered, "His blood be on us and on our children." So he released Barabbas for them, and after flogging Jesus, he handed him over to be crucified.
Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom.
Then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the governor's headquarters, and they gathered the whole cohort around him. They stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him. And after twisting some thorns into a crown, they put it on his head. They put a reed in his right hand and knelt before him and mocked him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" They spat on him and took the reed and struck him on the head. After mocking him, they stripped him of the robe and put his own clothes on him. Then they led him away to be crucified. As they went out, they came upon a man from Cyrene called Simon. They compelled this man to carry his cross. And when they came to a place called Golgotha, which means place of the skull, they offered him wine to drink, mixed with gall. But when he tasted it, he could not drink it. And when they had crucified him, they divided his clothes amongst themselves, casting lots. Then they sat down there and kept watch over him. Over his head they put the charge against him, which read, "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews." Then 2 bandits were crucified with him, one on his right and one on his left. Those who passed by derided him, shaking their heads and saying, "You who would destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, save yourself. If you're the Son of God, come down from the cross." In the same way, the chief priests also, among the scribes and the elders, were mocking him, saying, "He saved others. He cannot save himself. He is the King of Israel. Let him come down from the cross now, and we will believe in him. He trusts in God. Let God deliver him now, if he wants to, for he said, 'I am God's son.'" The bandits who were crucified with him also taunted him in the same way. From noon on, the darkness came over the whole land until 3 p.m. And about 3 o'clock, Jesus cried with a loud voice, "Eli, Eli, lema sabachthani." That is, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Then, when some of the bystanders heard it, they said, "This man is calling for Elijah." At once one of them ran and got a sponge, filled it with sour wine, and put it on a stick, and gave it to him to drink. But the others said, "Wait, let us see whether Elijah will come and save him." Then Jesus cried again with a loud voice and breathed his last.
Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus,